Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Bert Clark, and you're listening to the SA Matters radio show with Rich Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 49 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from Williamsport, Maryland, where I'm in town to deliver 3 programs, one for the Chester County Department of Emergency Services, one hosted by the Hershey Fire Department and held at Lower Swatara Fire Department, and one for the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute National Fire Service Staff and Command Program in Towson. I had a day of rest between the programs, so I thought I'd swing down to Williamsport and visit with my best friend in the whole wide world, Fire Chief Will Ball. Chief Ball and I started on the same fire department way back in, let's just say, a long time ago. And he was the IC of an incident in 2013 that resulted in a Mayday. So, of course, I had to take advantage of the opportunity to schedule an interview with the firefighter who was involved in the near miss and the division supervisor who saw it happen and called the Mayday. Mark Kopp is a deputy chief for the Williamsport Volunteer Fire and EMS. He's 43 years old and is from a suburb of Buffalo, New York, Cheektowaga. I'm sorry, Mark, if I hacked that up. He has 20 plus years of service in New York and in Maryland, and he's also a 21-year law enforcement officer. Ryan Fuller is a lieutenant on the Williamsport Volunteer Fire and EMS Department, and he's 29 years old and lives in Frederick, Maryland. He has 14 years of service, including 10 years as a career firefighter in Frederick County, Maryland. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment with Ryan Fuller and Mark Kopp. Just after 7 a.m. on February 4th, 2013, Washington County 911 dispatch received a call reporting heavy black smoke to the rear of 110 North Conococheague Street in Williamsport. The caller advised them that her house was filling up with smoke from the outside. Crews were quickly dispatched out on Box 2-1 at 7:20 in the morning. Williamsport Rescue Engine 2 was able to see heavy smoke showing as they approached the scene. Lieutenant Nokes of Company 2 immediately requested a working fire assignment as they arrived. Crews found heavy fire on side Charlie of the structure. They began their initial attack. Fire Chief William Ball from Company 2 arrived and assumed command after a quick size-up and face-to-face with Lieutenant Nokes. Firefighters worked to control the fire, but the fire found its way through a cockloft area and rapidly spread to different parts of the structure. At 7:48, Chief Ball requested a second alarm. So let's pick it up with Lieutenant Fuller and Chief Kopp and let them tell the story from here.
We were dispatched shortly after 7 a.m. For the report of heavy black smoke coming from the rear of 110 North Conococheague Street in the heart of downtown Williamsport, what we call the square of Williamsport. I was coming from my residence when the dispatch call occurred, and I live in the Fairplay area, which is closer to Sharpsburg, so I'm about a 6.5 miles away from the Williamsport area. So time distance travel from my residence there took me several minutes, obviously, to get there.
Did you go to the scene or to the station?
I went directly to the scene.
Okay.
Units were already on the street. While en route, one of our lieutenants, Lieutenant Michael Nokes, who was riding the seat of the ladder truck, which was our first unit out, as soon as they had marked up responding, I heard dispatcher advising them that they were receiving several calls on this, and they believed they had a good working fire. Lieutenant Nokes had advised that once they made their approach and their turn onto Conococheague Street, that he did see heavy smoke showing, and I believe at that point he had asked them to go ahead and start the working fire assignment or the safety dispatch that we do here in Washington County. Several minutes after dispatch call again, time distance travel coming from my residence, I arrived on scene. Fire attack was already taking place by the initial crews. It appeared to be heavy fire load within the structure. Heavy black smoke was visible. There was fire coming from the 2nd Division of the structure at the time. Upon my arrival and calling on scene, the incident commander, Chief Ball, had placed me as the division or the sector commander of Conococheague Street at that side. There was a little confusion at first as to what side we were considering, the side Alpha and which side was side Delta, because the way the structure sits right on the intersection of that street. I remember a lot of chaos going on at the time, because it was one of those fires that we always talked about, that if we ever had an issue, or if we ever had a fire in the square of Williamsport, that it was going to be a major event. Luckily or unluckily for us, we've had exposure and we've had experience with a similar type of fire, such as the Boonesboro fire that occurred several years before this, which is the same type of setup, close proximity buildings, heavy fire load, older construction. So I think we learned a lot from that. Chief Ball was a part of the incident management team for that, assisting Boonesboro, so he had a little bit of insight as to what to expect and where are we now, where are we going, and where we're going to be 15, 20 minutes, an hour down the road. So on the management side, I think it was managed very well by the incident commander in this situation. Leading into the events of the Mayday occurrence with Firefighter Fuller.
Well, before we get there, let's talk about what you got on the scene as far as resources. So I got Ball as the IC, you got you as the Delta Division officer?
Correct.
All right, so what other resources are on the scene?
On the scene at the time, it's a typical rural setting response for our area, which is during the daytime, it's light to say the least. We can have a unit going out driver only. We can have a unit with 2, maybe 3 guys if we're lucky. And this was one of those typical kind of days. Ladder truck, I believe, responded, only had 2 or 3 guys on it. The resources were on the road. The units were responding, but the manpower, the power that we had coming wasn't the ideal scenario of what you want for that type of.
So in addition to the ladder, what do you have there?
At our time, at the time from Williamsport, our ladder truck was on the scene. We had our rescue engine was on the scene, and I'm not.
How many on that?
Two personnel, I believe, were on that one.
All right.
And at some point, our engine tanker, I know, responded, but I believe they again only had 1 or 2 personnel on it at the time.
Okay. So, and then there's Chief Ball and yourself, so that's 2 more.
Correct.
So if I'm doing the math, you got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people. Does that sound right?
And then you have the ambulance crew, our paid paramedic crew that was on scene.
Do they fight fires or are they standby EMS?
this particular time, I don't believe they were cross-trained firefighters that were involved in active firefighting at the time. I believe they were more of assisting the IC and setting up rehab.
Okay. So you said they were engaged in, fire attack was in progress when you arrived. So does that mean attack from interior or attack from exterior? What did you see when you got there? Was there a line going in, or was it
when I first got there? Yes, there was a line already advanced to Division 2 of the Delta side, what we were calling Delta side at the time, off of Conococheague Street. Line was going up. They thought it was an apartment fire to the rear. The crews were making advance, and I think at that point realized that the building's a very old building. It's late 1800s, early 1900s build type. It's very choppy. It's kind of it was several things over the years, but the main front portion was a hardware / convenience store with apartment tenement on the upstairs on the second floor and into the rear of the structure. So it was a lot of add-ons, a lot of cutting and choppiness inside the building. So when the initial crew was going in under the direction of Lieutenant Nokes, they're advancing in, had a lot of heat. What they were reporting had a lot of heat, heavy smoke conditions, but they couldn't get to what they found to be the source or the bulk of the fire. I think it was later to determine afterwards. It was one of those type of buildings, very difficult to do a 360 because of the way the layout was. So trying to get access to the back side of the building to see what type of involvement we had was difficult at best. And it was later determined that I believe it was a boiler area that the fire involvement originally started and pushed into the building. In the actual apartment building that the initial attack was being made on, difficult to get into the actual fire, and wound up having to back them out. Sit back, look at what we had, trying to gain access, vantage points, trying to get alleyways into the back of this building, which is ultimately what we did to try to get crews backed out and around to make a knock basically from both sides.
How many were on the initial attack line?
I believe 2 were on the initial attack line, but again, I'm coming into the event 10-15 minutes into the incident, so what actually went in the door, I don't recall.
Okay. And was there concern about rescue at that point, or did they know that they had an all clear?
I don't think anyone really knew at that point. I think there was still concern by the initial crews that the apartments that they were initially making a push on, that there were still tenants inside. I think they were getting mixed responses from people on scene as to whether everybody was out or whether there was still somebody in there. There wasn't anything imminent that was telling us, yes, there's one unaccounted for. It was just, I think, the time of day, the location, just trying to determine exactly where everybody was and who's accounted for and who's not.
Okay. All right. And Ryan, what vehicle were you on?
I came shortly after the second alarm was dispatched. I came in one of our support vehicles.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if there's more story to tell before Ryan gets there as far as what was going on, or.
Well, I think the only other thing to add to that was obviously we were hurting for manpower. The incident commander obviously saw a lot of things that weren't going in the right direction. Change of smoke color, change of volume.
Describe that for me.
Depending on where you were looking at the building, you could have anything from a light haze, a light gray smoke pushing out, to certain areas where you had a dark brownish gray smoke that was pushing, and that you could see there were certain areas that you knew flashover was imminent in those locations or those rooms. But again, looking at the structure, you couldn't tell exactly where the main bulk of the fire was because it's so choppy. At one point, we had heavy fire and heavy black billowing smoke coming out of the front doors of the structure rolling out, and then other times you had a light smoke coming up from the second division. Next thing you know, it's rolling. So it was a very unique dynamics of how the building was set up and trying to understand where it was and where we had to push and advance on to get this fire knocked down and keeping everybody safe.
Okay. So you came in on the second alarm, Ryan?
Yeah. So like we said, the original call was dispatched somewhere between 7 and 7:20. The second alarm was dispatched at 7:48, along with the third alarm at 8:15. So sometime between the two alarms is when I arrived. And then that's when I got dressed. I reported to the command post. Like I said, people were slowly starting to arrive. There wasn't many people in staging yet. That's when I had given my pat tag to Chief Ball, and then I met up with the crews from Williamsport, and they were gathering for an attack, a second attack on the fire building itself.
So this was the crew that was in there when Mark arrived. They came out, and
I believe it was
them?
I believe it was a second crew that already gathered up from Williamsport.
Okay.
So we'd met up on the Delta side where Chief Kopp was working, and we were gonna start an aggressive interior attack on the Delta side on the first floor. Since that's where the fire oriented, we were gonna try to get in, make a second push on it before it progressed above and throughout. As a crew leader, I went with two other firefighters that had the attack line. Wasn't really sure of what the conditions were like inside, or what type of building we were going into. We knew that it was vacant, but I wasn't aware of what was inside. So there was a lot. I believe there was a lot of old furniture, shelving that was still inside the building. We started going in. We could see the fire. The smoke wasn't terrible. We started making a push towards the back, which would have been further north on Conococheague Street. So I was side by side with the nozzleman, trying to get to the seat of the fire.
What were you? What's in this place? I mean, are you crawling around things, over things?
I think there was a lot of stuff already knocked over. Like I said, it was an old hardware store and convenience store, so all the old shelving was in there, desks, furniture. So I think some stuff was knocked over, some stuff wasn't. So we were crawling over some stuff, through some stuff, but it wasn't, what we could still see, and it wasn't a major concern. We weren't getting ourselves into a situation that we didn't think we could get out of. So as we were advancing, we could see the fire. We're getting...
How far are you away from the fire?
I would say maybe 15 feet or so, maybe further.
How much fire is there?
Really, I don't think as much. I would say maybe a corner. But like I said, we didn't know, not knowing the building, we didn't know where it leaded to. We didn't know if there was a stairwell back there. There was a wall behind an office, so we were just trying to get to it to see what we had. So as we were progressing, I guess what had happened was there was a stairwell of some sort going to a cellar. The stairwell wasn't very marked. It was in the middle of the floor, per se. I believe at one time they said there was railing around it, but it was already burned away, or it just was gone. So we were advancing, going around some obstacles. The Osman got behind me, not far enough where we weren't in contact, but enough that where I'd went off the side of the stairwell. I'd landed on my back about 4 stairs down. I was laying on my back. Some furniture, I believe, did fall. You could see embers above you into the ceiling. Smoke was rolling across. Looking to my left, I could see the cellar. The cellar was clear. There was no fire or smoke in the cellar. And that's when Chief Kopp saw me, and I let him...
Did the crew that was with you realize that you fell into the basement?
No.
How does that... I mean, did you guys have a conversation later about how they didn't realize that you're there, now you're not there?
I'm sure we did. With the adrenaline and everything, the situation was corrected, and I guess we just moved on from it. I don't recall ever saying anything to them. I do remember saying something to them after I did get out of the situation. Being able to self-rescue myself. When I first fell down the stairs, I was laying on my back. I was calling for them at first, figuring, before I
calling to them verbally or over the radio?
Verbally, yes. Uh-huh. I figured they were right there, so before I call Mayday, I'll call them. They can come get me out of the stairwell. They can come help me up, get this, whatever was on top of me, off of me. And
did they hear you?
Nope. I guess they were still going. They thought maybe I was beside them or in front of them. And I hollered about 3 or 4 times, realized they weren't coming. And that's when I...
So was the smoke thick enough that, that they wouldn't have seen you if you were beside them? Or
I think the further we were going towards the seat of the fire, the thicker the smoke was getting. So, yes, it would have made things difficult. And, of course... the other two, not knowing that the stairs was there, they probably didn't, that's the last thing they thought, that I was going to go down into a hole.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
I hate to interrupt you, but I want to understand how this happened. Did you fall into the stairs because the smoke kept you from seeing them? Debris kept you from seeing them? Or you were just focused on something else and you didn't see the hole?
I was focused and I did not see the hole. I was, we were on our knees. We were crawling. I had a Halgan bar with me. I was, feeling in front of me. And then it happened so quickly. I didn't have time to catch myself. I knew that I knew I was falling into a hole, but there was nothing for me to catch on to.
What were you thinking right at that moment when all of a sudden you're free falling? I mean, I realize you only fell a short distance,
right? But
something's got to be going through your mind.
Of course, I was scared. I figured, where am I going? I don't know if the cellar's on fire, because like I said, I'm new to the incident. I just got there. It's my first attempt inside. I'm like not panicking, but on the other hand, I'm like, this is not good. I'm laying on my back, and all I can see above me is the smoke, embers coming on top of me. I got furniture. I hollered out for my crew. They don't hear me. I think one reassuring thing was when I looked to my left, noticed the cellar was clear. I could see outside into the street. And
through what, like basement windows?
There was a small cellar door that led out to Conococheague Street.
Okay.
And then that's when Chief Kopp saw me and called my Mayday.
All right, Chief, pick it up. You're on the Delta side.
On the Delta side, obviously monitoring all sides, all floors of the structure, because we do have several crews that are inside operating interiorly. Seem to be getting a pretty decent knock on the fire, but
who's getting the knock? Not Ryan's crew, are they? Or is it another crew?
There's a couple of different crews. We had another crew coming in from, I guess the the Bravo side of the structure had made entry from the alleyway.
On the first floor as well?
That's where the confusion had come in,
Okay.
because what they were looking at on the Bravo side was different from what we were looking at the Delta and the Alpha side. The Alpha side, looking at the front of the structure, looked like the 2-story, just 2.5-story, whatever, from the front. But as you go up Conococheague Street, the road declines
Grade
down
changes.
as it's going down towards the river. And so when Ryan's talking about being in the basement and there being an access out, from my vantage point, there's a couple steps down into a cellar doorway that leads into the basement area or cellar of this building, a level or area you wouldn't see from the Alpha side. So as I'm sitting there, obviously monitoring what's going on, next thing I know, I see a firefighter coming down backwards and landing on his bottle area.
Yeah, hold on before we get there. Was the other attack crew, with the grade change and everything, were they attacking the fire on the same floor that Ryan's crew was attacking the fire on, or were they on a different floor?
I believe they were hitting a bulk of the fire from the exterior.
Okay.
It's kind of the building was L-shaped, and they made access in through a gate from the Bravo side and came in, advanced in through there. There was some back and forth between incident commander and the special ops chief, which I believe was in charge of that sector, as to it seemed to be some confusion as to who was where and who was fighting what at one point. It was confusion from all angles.
Okay.
So were they actually inside? I don't believe that they were on the Bravo side. I think at that point they were still making a knock, trying to hit the bulk of the fire, because that's where the heavy fire load was, and it was pushing into the building.
Okay.
So where they were at that point, I don't believe they were interior, but I believe at some point they were on that second division and were inside. But whether it was at the same time that Ryan had come through the floor, I don't recall.
Okay.
All I remember is again being able to see into the basement. There was a haze of smoke in the basement, but that had been cleared. There was nobody operating in the basement level at that point. Mm-hmm. And you go from a clear basement with a haze of smoke, and next thing you know, you see a firefighter coming down, falling on his back. And my only way to describe it is you're sitting around a campfire, and you got a fire going, and somebody takes a big log and they throw it in the middle of the fire, and you just see all the embers crashing all around and flying up from that log being thrown in there. And it was very similar to that. It was seeing a firefighter coming through the floor, what I perceived to be through the floor. I didn't know there was a stairwell over there. Just seeing him come down, he was on his back. I could hear him yelling out, and appeared to be in distress. He separated from his crew, obviously, and I didn't hear him declaring it, so I immediately declared a Mayday on my radio, given the location. I knew that I had a RIT team that I would just had eye contact with, kind of sitting at the Alpha Delta side of the building. So
what that Mayday traffic sound like? I mean, what? You're not the one. The Mayday isn't for you. So what's it sound like as you're calling a Mayday for someone else? What did you say?
I think I tried to go through the same training that we do when we're practicing doing interior attack and we become in trouble. I remember declaring Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I believe I gave my location. It's
yours or his?
My location, where I was trying to describe. I got a firefighter that's fallen into the basement. Need RIT activated. Again, I don't know who the firefighter is at the time. I just know there's a firefighter. He seems to be in distress. I remember his helmet got knocked off, because I don't believe he received his helmet until after he came back up out of the fire, because he had self-extracted himself eventually, went back up and re-engaged or reconnected with his crew. So by the time the RIT crew received the Mayday and grabbed their equipment and came to my location and went to make entry into the basement area. As they were going into the basement, Ryan was actually had gotten himself untangled from whatever debris he had on him and was actually making his way back up the stairway. Later on, able to tell that it was a stairway, but at the time when he came down, I wasn't sure whether it was a hole that was burned out in the floor or whether it was, what the issue was. All I know is I got a firefighter that's coming down and he's laying on his back, and it was different because, as you said, calling a Mayday for yourself, although we train for it, when you see it happen to somebody else, it was kind of surreal to watch it, to see it evolve, and you're like, your first instinct is just to run in and go and try to grab them, pull them out, but you have to sit back and use your own situational awareness, and is it the right thing to do? And I gotta make sure I get the resources here. I know I got the guys that are sitting here waiting for something like this to happen. Now it's occurred. Let's just get them and the resources here.
So there is a RIT team there?
There is a RIT team in place.
And how many's on the RIT team?
At the time, I want to say there was roughly 6 firefighters at that time that I remember that were in that group.
So how far into the incident was this Mayday? Because you were severely understaffed at the beginning, so where along the way did all this help get there in comparison to when the Mayday was called?
The Mayday was called right around 8:30, I believe. And at 8:15 was when Chief Ball had requested the third alarm. So at that point, we had a pretty good contingent of firefighters on scene. When all was said and done, I want to say it was in the area of 100 firefighters that were on scene, give or take. I'd have to actually go back and actually see what the part total was on that.
Okay. And did the RIT team, I know it all ended relatively quickly, but was the RIT team activated to your area, or were they activated to the interior?
They're activated to my location because I had advised them that I could see the firefighter have access from Delta side basement, and that's where they were deploying to. It almost seemed as quick as it took place and transpired and radio transmission happened, as they're gathering their stuff coming over. And I remember watching some of the guys as they're coming over. They're already masked up. They're getting ready to go in, to find out what's going on. And as quick as it was declared, Ryan had reoriented himself, self-extricated himself to the first floor where he came from, and met up with his crew. And I believe his crew at that point exited the structure and rehabbed and made sure everybody was good, put in check. He was cleared at that point, giving his helmet back, and we went on from that.
Did you hear Mark call the Mayday?
I did.
Did you know it was for you?
Yep. I heard the location. I had made eye contact with Chief Kopp, so I was pretty sure that he knew what was going on.
How far apart were you guys?
I'd say 40, maybe 50 feet.
You made eye contact from 50 feet?
I mean, I knew it was him. I knew it was him. So
all right. I misunderstood.
I looked
eye
over.
contact.
He was looking at me. I was looking at him. I was aware that he saw me.
Okay.
I knew it was him.
Right.
So I was laying there. Like I said, I knew I had to, keep myself calm, thinking about how am I going to get myself out of this. Not knowing my helmet was off my head at that point. So, I looked around, I thought about it, I got myself pulled back up, got the stuff off of me. And like he said, that's when I made my way up to the first floor. On the first floor, I met up with my crew. I advised them what happened to me. I asked the one gentleman that was with us, did you hear me? I was calling you. And he said no. So I was like, well, they called a Mayday for me, so let's exit the building. That way they know that all three of us are okay.
Do you realize at that point you don't have your helmet on?
He told me, he said, your helmet's gone. And that's when I put my hand on my hand, and I was like, oh, man, my helmet's gone. So we get outside. I think when he saw me exit, he cleared the Mayday. I think 2 other people came and grabbed me. I guess they wanted to make sure I was okay. They knew I was the Mayday guy. One that actually had my helmet. I'm not sure. I don't know if the RIT team was actually in their way to the basement, knew I was gone, grabbed my helmet, exited the building. So someone handed me my helmet. I walked up to rehab. They asked me a few questions. I said it was fine. Really, I think the bottles helped me in a lot of ways, because if I wouldn't have had my bottle on, I probably would have hurt my back. But, it helped me stabilize and get myself up off the stairs. So from that point, we were good to go, and we got reassigned to go assist with a second fire attack.
Yeah. So you didn't get hurt at all?
Nope. I think later on, as the adrenaline wore off, my back was sore. I didn't fall down a flight of stairs. I didn't fall through a floor 10 feet, but I took a pretty good smack on my back. I fell from the landing down to the fourth stair. So, it was.
Mark, the Delta side that you were in charge of, what was the total length of the Delta side of the building? Estimated.
With apartments and everything, I'd say it was probably pushing 200 feet.
Okay, 200 feet. So, would you characterize it as lucky that you happen to be looking just right where Ryan fell down the steps at the moment he fell down the steps?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
it seems like a 1 in a million thing that you just happen to have your eyes trained right in the direction through that window, right to where he's going to fall.
Right, and it was surreal to see that I'm looking, and it's like, this didn't just happen, because my main focus was the floors where I knew I had guys inside and doing fire attack, and it was just one of those things. I was scanning, I was looking around, checking everything, making sure everything was clear, and I don't recall if somebody had asked about the basement division or what the reasoning was. I just, again, happened to be looking down through into the basement, and before I can even take my eyes away is when a body comes falling through the floor in full turnout gear. I know it's one of our guys, and it's, again, it's one of those situations that I hope I never have to declare a Mayday again for myself or anybody else. But we were very lucky in the fact that everybody came out of it safely.
Is that the first time you ever had to call Mayday?
Yes.
And how hard was it for you to resist the temptation to go in there and snag him?
It was very difficult, because that is your first thought. You see a guy come through the floor, and it was almost kind of like slow motion, because I seen him, I could see the struggle. At that point, I'm declaring the Mayday, and I'm looking around, and it's almost like everything was in slow motion. There's so much going on in the scene. You got the sounds of saws going, you got the crackling of fire, you got people yelling, you got the engines roaring. There's so much going on, and you're looking around, and you're looking for somebody else to look at you going, oh my God, did that just happen? But I'm the only one that's seeing this. So trying to get other people's attention when everybody else is focused on the other things that are happening on the other floors and everything else around them. So yeah, the first instinct was to just mask up and go in, because I still had a bottle on. I was on the exterior, because initially when I first got there, I was helping to do a lot of the operational stuff until we got manpower there. So yeah, that was a thought that crossed my mind. I wanted to go in there, but I also knew that me going in isn't going to help anybody. And then we could potentially have another firefighter in trouble. Was there structural integrity issues that this firefighter came through the floor, or was it just somebody fell down the stairs? I didn't know at that point. Right. And I think the scariest thing was seeing him come down and seeing him laying there. Although for a brief time period, I didn't see anybody else coming, and so there I knew there's some type of separation somewhere, because he's not with whoever he was with. But on the same point, it's only one guy coming through the store. That's manageable. We got people here that I know that if I can't go in and grab him, somebody's going to be able to come in and grab him. He's within, an eye shot away. I could see a firefighter, don't know who it is. He can see me, but he can probably... The picture's a little bit clearer from looking from the dark interior looking out to the light than it was from the light looking in. So it was just one of those things that we were lucky because it could have been a lot worse.
What'd you guys learn from this?
One thing I learned was knowing your first due. Given the layout of the building, get out in your first due, do walkthroughs of your buildings, know the layouts of your buildings. Given if still being kind of new to the department in the area, if we'd have done a walkthrough of that building, or if I've done a walkthrough of that building, maybe I would have known where the stairwells were, so I'd have been prepared for it. That's the biggest thing. Get out in your first due.
How long had that first floor been vacant? Years?
It hadn't been years because within a year prior to the fire, I remember going into... So in fact, it was Chief Ball and myself. We had gone in, and I don't recall, we had gone in just to... I think we were looking for... Ironically enough, I think we were looking for metal clips for our pat tags. Because we had an influx. We had changed over the type of pat tag system that we were using, and we had a bunch of extras when we were out of the metal clips, and we're like, oh, let's go up to Wolf. So they have a little bit of everything. It's like I say, it's an old building, but it was choppy, and you walk in, there's an area where there's hardware equipment and supplies and nuts and bolts and stuff, but then over here you've got shelves full of it's like a liquor store. And over here you have, convenience store items. So it was a little bit of everything. And so it was within the year that I had actually gone in there to look for some of these clips to utilize for the pat tags. But again, like Ryan said, it's one of those things where, there's certain places you walk into sometimes you happen to start looking around and you start thinking in that firefighter mindset, or like, man, if we ever had a fire in here, and that was one of those buildings that you always, man, if we ever have to come here, it's going to be a heck of a fire. Mm-hmm. And it proved to be true because it was a devastating fire for the downtown area, but it could have also been a lot worse. As devastating, as big of a fire as it was, crews kept it from taking more of the block that it potentially could have. Mm-hmm. I think we all like the Monday morning quarterback certain things when we see somebody else operating on an incident, or we review or read things about different incidents. But I always like to try to learn, and I'm one of those type that I like to seek out advice from other people. I don't know everything. I learn every day in this job of being between being a career police officer and being involved in the fire service for close to 30 years, that I learn every day. And this is one of those things where I wasn't on my A game, or at least I don't feel I was on my A game. So there's always something you can learn from it. And Ryan hit it dead on. Know your first due. Know the layouts as best as you can. We improvised, we adapted, and we overcame the situation. Mm-hmm. But a lot of it had to do with a lot of the knowledge and experience that we had in both our command staff that was on scene, and the resources that he had, and the experiences that we faced in previous style fires in a small town such as Williamsport. And we learned a lot from those past fires in Boonesboro and Clear Spring and stuff like that, that when it became ours, I believe it helped the situation a lot.
Mm-hmm. Would you guys do anything? Would you have done anything different at that fire, looking back in hindsight? Now you've had lots of time to reflect on it. To say, if I had a chance to wind it all back, we might have done something different, even if it doesn't relate to the Mayday per se.
I think really there wasn't anything you could have changed. for the outcome, other than a building tour before the fire. At any given time, someone can fall through a floor or down a flight of stairs if you don't know it's there. I think all our safety precautions were in place as far as the RIT teams, and unfortunately, I guess it's just something you don't expect to happen, and at any given time, you don't know when you're going to fall through a floor or down a flight of stairs. I mean, if it's not marked, or if you've got conditions that are not allowing you to see those stairs, then that's something that's above you, something that you can't.
If there was not access to the basement through that exterior that you had described, and you'd have fell through the floor because the floor was weakened, how would the RIT team have rescued you?
Well, I guess the same type of training that we go through when we go through some of our RIT schools. I think it was a short enough area that if they had to deploy a rescue rope to get somebody out and go down that way, they could have easily put down a roof ladder or an attic ladder to make access. Because as Ryan described, it again, the grade of the structure from the outside was very deceiving. But there was certainly it was a short enough floor access that it would have made it, I think, easy enough for firefighters to make access into them and get them out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the RIT team, were they from your fire department or another fire department?
They were not from our fire department. I don't recall everybody that was part of it, but again, Special Ops was there. There was the whole county was there. All of Washington County was there. We had units from Washington County. We had units from Berkeley County, West Virginia. We had, I believe we even had units from as far as Montgomery County that were responding into the area to backfill, to bring in manpower because of, again, where are we now? Where are we going to be in 15 minutes, and where are we going down the road? And are we making progress with this? And at the early stages of it, Chief Ball made a great decision of dropping that second and third alarm early on and getting that manpower and getting those resources there. We learned the abilities of some of our own equipment and what's needed. When they needed to make access into the Bravo side or the alley side, we needed a ladder truck in there. But the first tower from Company 26 Halfway couldn't make that turn. Tiller truck from City of Hagerstown wound up coming in and making that, because they were able to make that alleyway and get in there and become effective in utilizing their truck to its abilities that you needed in there. So stuff that we always look at and pre-plan, if we ever get something here, what's going to make this alley, what's going to make this roadway, and it's part of being in a tight, closed-in, community area, city area, whatever you're working with. You learn what resources you need, and this is one of those things that we learn from.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything in closing you guys want to add?
Like I preached on before, just get out of the firehouse, go, even if it's walking down the street, go learn your buildings, go learn your area, walk through buildings if you can, set up building tours. It might make the difference.
I would echo that, as well as making sure you guys you practice your Mayday calls and be ready for it. Don't and I'm not saying that this was the case on any of our guys in any way, but put that pride thing aside. If you're separated, you're disoriented, you're for whatever reason, declare that Mayday now before it's too late. Because again, if I didn't have access from that basement level, if we didn't make that eye contact, had that been a true cellar situation where he fell in and he couldn't get out, his guys obviously didn't know that he was separated from the crew. we could be talking about a different thing here. We could be talking about a line of duty death, and that's hopefully something we don't never have to experience.
Thank you, Ryan and Mark, for taking some time to share your valuable near-miss experience. Before I close the episode, I want to take a moment to thank the recent program host. Your efforts to bring a situational awareness and decision-making program to your region is greatly appreciated. We did a 2-day event at the Loveland Fire Rescue Authority in Colorado. This was a very special event because it was hosted by Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire held a drawing at the FDIC in 2014, and Loveland was the winner. Saturday attendees received a full-day flawed situational awareness program, and the room was packed and the participation was awesome. Thank you to Battalion Chief Jason Stark for the great hospitality. Thanks to Rick Davis, too, one of the strong supporters of the SA Matters mission, after Rick and I met at a program that I did there a few years ago. And, of course, thank you to Midwest Fire for your passion for firefighter safety. It shows deeply in the trucks that you build and in the support that you give to the programs and in sponsoring this podcast. You're a top-notch company, and I'm very proud to say that I'm among your fans. We did a 2-day program for Chester County, Pennsylvania, where Dave Dotson and I teamed up for 1 day of SA Matters and 1 day of Reading Smoke. The attendance there was also amazing, and the group was very interactive. A little shout-out to Al Gore, who attended the program, and if you were inside joke, you had to be there to get that one. We'll be in Hershey tomorrow night, and thanks to Chief Rodney Sonderman for the invite back to Hershey, and thanks for the chocolate that you gave me the last time I was there, too. It's a rare opportunity to get a big kiss after a program, and I really enjoyed that one. And then we'll be at Towson, Maryland for the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute National Fire Service Staff and Command Program on Wednesday. This will be my 14th year presenting at the Staff and Command School. It's an amazing program for up-and-coming command officers. Thank you to Jonathan Hart, Pat Marlette, and Steve Edwards for supporting my mission. Upcoming SA Matters tour stops that you may want to try to get connected with me at. On April 1 and 2, I'll be at the Payette Mountain National Forest on a Wildland program, Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety on April 3 and 7, Vacaville Fire Department on April 6, Santa Clara County Fire Department on April 7 and 8, the New Hampshire Emergency Dispatchers Conference I'm keynoting on April 14, the Saskatchewan Fire Chiefs Association Conference I'm keynoting and then giving a breakout on April 17 and 18, and of course the International FDIC on April 21 to 25. If you're interested in attending any upcoming SA Matters tour stop, just head over to SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage that says upcoming events, and that'll show you where you can get connected at. And here's hoping if you do come to the program, be sure to say hi. I love meeting the folks who visit the blog and listen to the podcast. It's very humbling for me to get to know the folks that are behind the support of the show. I'm working hard to recruit new members to the SA Matters community of learners. If you'd like to become a member, just head over to the SA Matters website and click on the red box that says Become a Member and receive the free gift. There are over 5,000 members sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness and decision-making under stress. Membership is free. When you sign up, you get a special report that I've created, 25 best practices for improving first responder safety. It's short and sweet. It's not a big book or anything. It's just more like a little white paper that I did for new members. If you're not a member, head over and click on the red box and sign up. Remember that every episode of SA Matters Radio has a corresponding show notes page on the SA Matters website. The most recent episodes scroll on the home page, and for older episodes, you can access the show notes by just going into samatters.com / and then the episode number, which I always mention at the beginning of the show. So, for example, if you wanted to access episode 45, open up your browser, enter samatters.com / 45. That'll take you to the page. It contains the link to the episode. You can play the episode right there on your desktop. And then I also have pictures and takeaways, video, audio, anything that the guests will provide. You can also subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And look for SA Matters Radio when you're searching, not just SA Matters, but SA Matters Radio. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can follow at Rich Gasaway or at SA Matters on Twitter. And thank you to the more than 14,000 who've connected with me on Twitter. I really appreciate that. It's very humbling. You can also go to Facebook and like the SA Matters page on Facebook, and you can search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn as well. Well, that's it. Episode 49 is complete. Thank you to Ryan Fuller and Mark Kopp from the Williamsport Volunteer Fire Company for sharing your near-miss Mayday call. Thank you to Midwest Fire, our sponsor. Thank you to the listeners for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I sincerely appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. If you've experienced or witnessed a near-miss and would like to be interviewed on the show, visit SA Matters and click on the Contact Us link, and I'll thank you in advance for sharing your lessons learned so others may live. If you like the show, go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio, search SA Matters Radio, subscribe, and leave a review and a 5-star rating. I really appreciate that, and it helps others to be able to find the show. If you've been inspired and want to learn more about situational awareness, consider becoming a member, and you'll get that free report. To claim your free gift, head over to samatters.com, click on the red box on the right side of the homepage. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.